Hi gang, Ed Liss here today, and today we're going to talk about a very rare and unpopular jukebox called the Wurlitzer 1500A. It's an Apple. It was built in 1953 when Wurlitzer and other manufacturers were having selection wars, meaning how many records can each jukebox hold, and it was kind of like a little like contest to see who could hold more. Well, Wurlitzer won the contest, but they ended up building a very poor quality machine that caused a lot of problems in the field. Wurlitzer's always had too many parts, but this machine could play both 45s and 78 intermixed together. It didn't matter where you put the record in these different stacks. It would play this right speed, and it would play the bottom side of the record with a tone arm that played the record upside down, and reversing motor made it play normally. So you had the ability to move the records around top to bottom. The machine weighs 479 pounds dead weight. The mechanism is very complex and uses a ratchet drive. And a ratchet drive is a big chain that you hear like a clunk, 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 like you hear on Coney Island if you did the roller coaster as it's going up the first incline. You hear that clanking, and that's what was used in that kind of technology. And it used a lot of different things that had to do double duty. It had to play both sides of the record. It had to play two speeds, 78 and 45. It had to do a lot of other things that made it really multifunctional, but unreliable for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons was that this jukebox was the only one designed with the stylus to play both 45 and 78 on the same needle, same stylus, which was kind of difficult, but it worked. Fidelity was good. It wasn't as good as some other manufacturers, but it did play both speeds, and the machine held a total of 104 selections, 52 records, two sides times two sides is 104. So they beat Seeburg on the selections, but the jukebox was really inferior to what they had done previously. They used what's called stamped metal in this, and stamped metal is a cheaper metal that's not as strong as what they used to use prior to these models. So what happens is they end up either bending or getting cracked or getting broken, and you can't go to a location and just change everything there. The machine has to be removed. You can't work on location with this. It's too complex. So a lot of them failed in the field, and I heard people tell me, that knew of this at the time, that even factory-trained Wurlitzer technicians could not keep this model running reliably in the field on location. Mercifully, it only lasted 2 years, and then they put in a new system which is much more reliable. So this machine, I originally found this model in 1978 or 9, I forget. I think it was 9. And I got it with another machine that I restored, and this one I didn't restore because I couldn't get it to do anything, even turn on. And finally one day when I got it to kind of cycle or try to cycle, it almost took my index finger off. So I always said, this model is bewitched. And I got rid of it somehow. I got rid of it. So 40 years later, in December of 2009, I walked to this woman's house who had a jukebox for sale, and the same model is sitting there. They had tried to look by and try to do anything with, couldn't do anything with 40 years prior. So she said, would you like to see it work? And I said, are you kidding? These things never work. It kind of worked, but, it had issues. It wasn't great. But she had it in her family for 50 years, 5 decades. And she purchased it used in 1959, 6 years after it was built in Yonkers. And it had moved 3 times over the last 50 years. And after 10 years, we are still making adjustments and things to it because the machine is so complex. This jukebox uses a selection system that allows you to select either 45s or 78s based on where the record is located in the stackers. They're called carriers. Right now they're all at rest. They're at storage. They're at rest. But when they swing out into the center, they're called carriers. And one of the things that we did when we got the machine was it started to pull out 2 trays at once, which is not right. And it was very difficult to find. It took us 2 years to figure out why it was doing that. And we finally realized it was a cam adjustment that had come loose or was out of adjustment, and that fixed it. But all kinds of issues. We had to machine parts of the rod to go up and down to pick the records, and you have to machine them precisely, within one maybe 10,000th of an inch. So who's going to find someone to machine something like that? I did, and they did it, and it worked. So I got rid of that issue. The speaker was fine. It's an original 15-inch dynamic range speaker. It's got really good bass. The amplifier is huge and was expensive to restore, but worth it. This here, inside, that kind of like greenish thing, we redid with hammer tone. It's hammer tone. That was originally used there, and that was difficult to do, but we managed to do that, as well as shine up the record rings here, the rings. But all this was here. The machine is all original. Everything you see on it came with the jukebox, including these decals. The way this machine works is very unique. It can play both 78s and 45s interchangeably. And this little device here is the actual turntable. And if you can see it, it's got a lip on it, like a little nipple lip, and that is used to play 78 RPM records that have the small holes. But if you look at the ring around it, it's bigger, and that holds a 45 RPM, a 7-inch record, which has a bigger hole. So what happens is when it comes out of the storage, this device raises it, and based on 78 or 45, it will connect to the corresponding micro switch that controls that speed and that size record and lock it in. And then the tone arm will come in and play exactly where it should be on a 78 or come in further for a 45. When you play the opposite side, a reversing motor changes the speed, direction, and it plays it upside down on the opposite side, as if it were on this side. So A and B are played with 2 different tone arms. This was the only jukebox ever designed to play both formats with the same stylus. The only one in existence. So the sound on it is okay. I don't find it as good as some of the other machines, like the Seaberg at the time. But this machine has interesting sound, and it's very complex. And the amplifier was extremely complex and was really needed a lot of work. So this machine now has been restored almost to 95%. We have a few more things we have to do to it, but I'm anxious to play it, and I think it will work. Knock wood, my head. So let's play something that's on a 78. I'm going to play Wake Up Little Susie and listen to the ratchet drive. We're going to play a 45 RPM now, and you can see how it works. This song was from 1957 by a Canadian group. The Diamonds.
darling, I need you. Call my own and never do wrong. To hold in mind your little hand. I know too soon that all is so grand. Please hold my hand.
I still have nightmares about that jukebox. I've only had a couple of those things, and all I can tell you is, right out of the box, they don't work. And if you think you're going to be the guy that gets the perfect one, good luck with that. I remember a good friend of mine who picked up a great 1500, and he called me and he said, "I got this 1500, and we're just going to go through it. Should be done in a month or so." And I said, "Yeah, good luck with that." I said, "We'll be still talking about this jukebox in a couple of years," and I know it was at least 5 years, and I would be surprised if it's still working perfectly, but maybe it is, but we'll see for how long.
So, would you recommend that model for other people to fix?
Only for masochists and sadists.
I'm a Jet fan, so I guess it counts for me.
Well, yes, of course. For guys like him, yeah. No, I was offered a 1500 that was sitting in the upstairs of Sun Studios back in the early 80s, and it was sitting upstairs. It was kind of rough. It probably was restorable. And the guy there, his name was Gary Hardy. He run the place at that time, and he took me up there. He says, "I got this old jukebox. I want to get rid of it." He says, "What do you give me for it?" I looked at it and I said, "I don't want it." He says, $25. I said, "Gary, I don't want it." And I walked away from it. He couldn't believe I walked away from a jukebox in Sun Studios. But yeah, that's how much I love 1500s.